Only I can take the competition here. You know.
Well, and it's interesting too because a guy like Jaco Pastorius, who was to bass what Eddie Van Halen did to electric guitars, essentially, really kind of changed the bass of it.
Yes,
There's some things like what we do in metal, where metal is a much different style of music, right? It's more guitar, riff, and drum focused, so the bass has to find its own. We actually have a lot of liberty to be very creative in what we do, right? Creating lines. Yet, obviously, the main thing is the foundation and holding down the fort.
Interesting. You know, I'm glad we're talking about this because I got to play with Randy Rhoads, which to me was very influential in what metal music is today.
Sure, absolutely.
And I played with him in Quiet Riot back in the 70s, 78, 79, right before he joined Ozzy. And that was a whole different Randy Rhoads. That was a Randy Rhoads in a band, Quiet Riot, a local band trying to get a record deal.
Right.
And we were just pursuing, just chasing our tail around, whatever was in the charts, we would write a song like that because the A&R guy requested it. You guys come back next week with a demo of a song that sounds like you think I'm sexy.
Sure.
We'll get you
That's interesting. I'm glad to know you did that too.
Yeah, so, by the time we did come up with a song like that, that song was gone, and then those days we were just chasing our tail around. So by the time that he joined Ozzy, Ozzy gave him the freedom to be himself. So he went in the direction that Blizzard and Diary of a Madman. And what always was I found very interesting is that Bob Daisley's bass lines within the structure of the Randy Rhoads songs were very unique.
Right. Oh.
And then when Randy was gone, passed away, and J.K. Lee came in and the subsequent bass players, he never played like that again.
No, you're right. In fact, it's interesting you say that because Randy's guitar playing was very inventive, very creative, and moved around a lot.
Yes.
Yet Bob's bass lines were also very inventive, very melodic bass playing, which I love.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting point. As like I said, the subsequent guitar players came in, everything got a little more stock and in the box. Didn't
yes,
much more so.
Yes, it did. I'm not sure if it was a sign of the times because when I went from playing with Ozzy, doing that style of music, to literally going in to record "Come and Feel the Noise," which was boom, 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 as it gets. And that became kind of like the stock, except for you guys. You guys broke the mold with Megadeth. You guys were going still back to the old school.
And it was also a two-guitar thing that we were doing, though. And that's what's interesting about a lot of what you did. It was one guitar with Quiet Riot, then with Ozzy, then of course Whitesnake became much more two guitars. And usually when you have one guitar, there's a lot wider space for liberty to play as a bass player. Versus when you have two guitars, oftentimes you kind of lock, the two guitars kind of bookend the sound a little bit.
I read an interview one time that it stuck with me. I'll never forget this. When you mentioned that you were working on a Megadeth record with Dan Huff,
right,
who actually got to play on some of the Whitesnake records.
Right.
And you mentioned that the passive guitar would cut through a low Marshalls.
Yes.
Yes, and I learned that. And I started thinking, what? Because I watched YouTube videos of when I was in Quiet Riot playing my Fender,
right,
and that sucker would cut right through anything.
Really?
I mean, it was like, the sound was right there. It was a certain frequency.
Yeah.
You know
what's interesting? I learned that playing in Nashville. In fact, I was intimidated to go to Nashville because all the A-list LA guys, the scene dried up out here from all the Madonna and the Michael Jackson and the pop stars. They all went to LA. So all of a sudden, all these A-list guys who also had great jazz chops and reading chops, and certainly Dan Huff, one of, if not the best of that deal. So then going down there, I studied. I actually took some lessons in practice, right? I took some lessons from a guy in Phoenix. I'm like, man, I need to brush up here, which was good because I went in with a lot more confidence because I had studied. But I learned that trick down there. The first record I did with Dan, we used a lot of active electronic stuff, and that's actually when I first started using the PD basses, or PD bass amps. The second record was when I realized the Nashville guys, man, it's like if you don't walk in with kind of just a straight passive P-bass kind of instrument, they kind of look at you like, what y'all doing? What are you thinking? And that was when I learned that little trick about, man, that passive instrument will pretty much cut through almost anything. And it matches well with the kick drum. And like you said, it will cut through a wall of guitars. So, which again is kind of what I did here on the Zodiac, and it's kind of cool at PV if you're chopping for basses. You can go with something very simple and traditional like this, or go to a very high-end instrument like what Rudy has. And sometimes live, I got to be honest with you, I have one Zodiac that has some active electronics in it. It's the main one that I play on a lot of live gigs because the active electronics work work really well live.
PV active electronics.
Yeah, it's one board that they had. The engineer Tim had one, and somehow he put it in my
I gotta
base.
tell you about the PV active electronics. I mean, I used to use Bartolini's EMGs, Olympic. I had to deal with Olympic. And when I got together with Mike Powers to design the first base, I said, listen, how about if we look at all the, we took it in the source code, we measured like every pickup and plant. I said, okay, how about we take this for this pickup and that's that. It was a combination. And these guys, not only the technology, but also the willingness to think outside of the box. Just makes everything that more unique about your design of your instrument and my design of my instrument.
And the PV pickups they're phenomenal.
They are phenomenal.
And they're great, and the electronics, especially like what you have in yours. Mine's just passive and simple, but in his it is just awesome.
Yeah,
so.
it is.
Well, hey, dude, this is awesome. We will continue.
We
will do a part 2.
Yeah, that's
Wait,
right.
what would that be? Part dos by...
Parte dos. We'll do it in Spanish next time.
Exactly.
Okay,
you do it. All right.
Brush up on your Spanish.
Yeah, I'll brush up on my Spanish. You brush up in your Japanese. And
there you go.
All right. So anyway, from Winternamp 2010, Rudy Sarzo, David Ellefson, sayonara.